Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Jeffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health. And really, without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. All right, welcome to an extra special bonus crossover episode with two geeks and a microphone.
I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Jeffrey with your murdery. And again, we're doing another crossover episode. So excited about this. Two geeks and a microphone is joining us, we'll say, in studio again.
Yeah! We're so excited to be here.
You guys want to...
Good morning to all you nerds out there. Nerds and merds.
If you guys want to introduce yourselves for those who haven't heard the other crossover we did.
I am Michael with Two Geeks and a Microphone.
And I am Steven with Two Geeks and a Microphone.
Fantastic. Great. You know, and those of you who really like the nerdery side of the house, if you're not listening to Two Geeks and a Microphone, you need to be listening to Two Geeks and a Microphone. They do some really cool deep dives into comics, into movies, into TV. I love
individual episodes, man.
Yes.
Even individual episodes. Yep.
I love listening to you guys. I love when I've got time on a Saturday morning to join you live and join in the festivities.
Oh, yeah. So,
and we appreciate the comments too. Thank you.
Oh, it's great to have you guys on. So, yeah, just for your listeners who may not know, we do live stream all on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook at the same time.
Right.
And even our website, if you go to our twogeeksmike.com website, even on there, when we go live, it will stream live. But you guys are great coming in. Jeff, it's great to have you come in and comment, because we'll do those on air. We discuss those on air when people comment, and it's always so interesting and a blast. So yeah, thanks for joining in.
No, I appreciate it. I have a lot of fun with those. Y'all are so much more ambitious than we are.
Or foolhardy.
Yeah, I think foolhardy is probably the better term.
We do our episodes as we're doing ours. We're like 8 weeks in the past when you're hearing our episodes. So, that's as much research as I have to do on a lot of my stuff.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Oh, some of them take an incredible amount of time, but this is really cool.
Chad and Lori Daybell took months.
Really? I will tell you guys, though, that's what makes your podcast so good, is because of the amount of research and detail that you guys give. And it's so interesting. It's not just detail for detail's sake. It's part of both of your guys' how you bring out, zig with your nerdery.
Thank you.
I mean, you bring up details I never knew about, all kinds of geekdom stuff that I just love. And Jeff, with your murdery side, the storytelling that you do and the details all deal with the story. It's not like, oh yeah, and the blood splatter was XYZ. You don't even get into that kind of. You're just always like, this is what occurred. This is why this occurred. So it's all just, you guys just have a great podcast. So I'm excited about being here with you guys. I love your guys' show. Thank you.
Did you know, by the way, before Michael talks, I'm sorry, that blood splatter is actually being considered a bunk science now.
Is it really?
Yep.
I'm sorry. That was really loud.
They are starting to say that blood splatter is not as much of a telltale in a crime scene as they previously thought.
Interesting. Wow.
So that's one of those show Dexter.
And it's just a show. No, I was going to say, as I told you guys on part one, my wife and my daughter and I were all going to go out to dinner last night, and we get in the car and I go to put our podcast on, and my wife's like, no, I wanted to listen to the latest episode of Nerdery and Murder. So again, you guys are well loved in our house.
And we very much appreciate that.
Thank you.
And that's a good time to tell everybody as well. If you're listening to this episode without listening to the first part on Two Geeks and a Microphone, you're going to miss the banter that we went through. Because
stop what you're doing, go listen to theirs, and then come back.
Yeah, hang on. Hang on. Let's pause the podcast. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're back.
All right, there you go. Welcome back.
I was going to give Jeff's line, please and thank you.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you.
So in the first part of this show over on the Two Geeks and a Microphone, we really did a deep dive into the movie The Exorcist. And in this second part, we're going to talk about the real life Exorcist, the supposed real life story that inspired The Exorcist, whether you believe in exorcisms or not. This is the story that actually inspired it. So go back and listen to the first part so you can hear about the movie, because there's a lot of it that does come into play here in the real life one as well. It's not our typical murdery about murder or true crime, but it is a very dark story.
Right. Yes. And I will say, as I said in the part one, I said, what we did was just the appetizer. I am so looking forward to this time with you guys on the true story side. So, it is a dark story. It is a dark tale, but it's got some interesting aspects to it. But yeah, we do cross over. There are some things in the movie that were they part of the real story or not? So I'm looking forward to this.
Great. Well, I'll dive into it. As usual, I've got sources that I went through for this. My sources for this, I took off Novel Suspects, Screen Rant, All That's Interesting, The Guardian, The New York Post, History of Yesterday, Last Gasp Paranormal Blog, Altered Dimensions, and St. Louis Public Radio.
Hi.
Yes. So with this, again, this is the real life Exorcist, and this is the true story of what happened to Roland Hunkeler that inspired The Exorcist. The movie was directed by William Friedkin. It was the 1973 horror movie, which tells the story of a young girl possessed by a mysterious entity. And much of the story is loosely inspired by a young boy in Cottage City, Maryland during the 1940s. Cottage City was a small town. This was back when residents didn't lock their door at night and nobody ever expected any trouble whatsoever. The Exorcist, both the movie and the 1971 novel it's based on, was written by William Peter Blatty, who first heard about the demonic possession of a 14-year-old boy around 1949 when Blatty was a senior at Georgetown University. Eugene Gallagher, one of his professors and a priest at the Jesuit college, told Blatty, who was a New York native, about the extraordinary story of a boy who was believed to be in the throes of demonic possession but had been saved through a series of exorcisms. Dr. J.B. Rhine, who was the director of parapsychology laboratory at Duke University, called the case the most impressive manifestation he has heard of in the poltergeist field. And according to reports, more than 48 people witnessed the events which transpired.
Ooh, I did not know how many people. Wow.
Parapsychology?
Parapsychology laboratory.
You mean like Peter Venkman?
Yes. That's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Okay. I'm with you.
Exactly.
What does this card have on it?
Nope. So in the late 1940s, Roland Edward Hunkeler, who was living in Cottage City, Maryland, which is near D.C., he was very commonly known for years as the Roland Doe. His real name was not actually known for many, many years. And actually, it didn't come out till after his death.
That was just last fall, wasn't it?
It was very recent, I believe.
Yeah.
Which that's understandable.
Oh, absolutely. As we go through this, you'll kind of see why he was known as the Roland Doe. He, like I said, he grew up in Cottage City. He attended both Bladensburg Elementary and Bladensburg Junior High before the strange occurrences forced him to withdraw from school. As an only child, he was doted on by his parents, but he was substantially raised by his mother's sister, Aunt Tilly. We talked about that in the movie, or in the first episode, that his aunt was the one who was a spiritualist and introduced Roland to a Ouija board. So just like what they talked about in the story. Roland spent a lot of time playing with the Ouija board. The game really fascinated him. But his time with Aunt Tilly was short, and she died on January 15th, 1949, and Roland was said to be devastated by the loss of his aunt. His family notes that strange things started happening in their house shortly after the death of Aunt Tilly. And in January of 49, the family reported hearing strange dripping noises and scratching sounds in the house. They also witnessed a coat hanger fly out of the closet, a Bible rise from the bookcase, and one day the kitchen table tipped over. At first, Roland's mother believed that the noises and events were connected to Aunt Tilly. So what the family did, they started trying to reach out to the spirits that were in their house, and they were hoping they could reason with them and ask them to be left alone. But this made things much, much worse. Roland claimed he could hear someone walking through his room at night. And when he was trying to sleep, there were scratch marks found on his mattress in the morning. It was found that when the scratching noises were ignored, the entire mattress would begin to shake. And at one point, the sheets actually unwrapped themselves from under the mattress and stood on edge as though they were held by starch. And when the bedspread was touched, the covers instantly dropped back into their normal position. Eventually, scratch marks also began appearing on Roland's body. Soon, the family noted the scratch marks became words that were etched into his body as if they were drawn by claws. The family queried the entity aloud and found that the answers were often returned by words scratched into the boy's skin.
How old was he at this point?
13?
13 or 14? Yeah, 14. 14.
In the beginning.
Little young. Sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
No, please. Just a little young for...
Schizophrenia usually occurs in the late teens.
Sure. Yeah. One of his former classmates said, quote, We were in a class together at Bladensburg Junior High. He was sitting in a chair, and it was one of those deals with one arm attached, and it looked like he was shaking the desk. The desk was shaking and vibrating extremely fast, and I remember the teacher yelling at him to stop it, and I remember he kind of yelled, "I'm not doing it." They took him out of class, and that was the last I ever saw of him in school. So they pulled him out of school very quickly after these events started happening. After weeks of torment, Roland's condition degraded significantly. He began cursing aloud and spitting at family members when they entered the room. He would openly urinate on the floor while Bibles and holy relics flew through the air. And he sang strange songs, verses of songs that the families knew he should have no knowledge of. So
Henry VIII, I am. I'm a guy from Nantucket. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, the family didn't know what to do, so they called in the family minister at that time, who was the Reverend Luther Schultz. And Luther Schultz was the first to witness the graphic manifestations, and he was the one who would finally recommend that the family consult the Catholic Church. He wrote to the Duke University parapsychology lab about what was going on with Ronald, detailing how chairs moved with him. One threw him out of it, and his bed shook whenever he was in it. The Reverend also cited the family's stories of tables overturning, their floors being scarred from the sliding heavy furniture, and in one, how a picture of Christ on the wall shook when Roland was nearby. After they observed the boy overnight at the church, the minister suggested they reach out to the Jesuits and get themselves a priest. But they did.
Yep.
So the family converted to Catholicism and tried to have Roland baptized, but he responded to their baptism attempts with unbridled rage. And at one point, he was admitted to a hospital where a psychiatrist attempted to treat him, but was ultimately unsuccessful. So they're going from priests to psychiatrists to parapsychologists. You know, nobody seems to know what to do with him at this point. From there, the family thought that they should move Roland to a different house that might make the spirits leave him alone, as if the spirits were just solely in that house, but the strange events continued. The family was out of options, so they called upon priests to perform an exorcism. Father E. Albert Hughes, who was the local Catholic priest, asked his superior's permission to perform an exorcism on the boy in late February 49, at which the church granted Hughes the request. For the exorcism, Hughes strapped Roland to the mattress and began his recitations, but he had to stop the rite when Roland broke off a piece of the mattress spring and slashed the priest across from shoulder to wrist, leaving the exorcism unfinished. His wounds required over 100 stitches.
Wow.
The young priest was also said to have a nervous breakdown after that and had to withdraw.
Oh, the one that got slashed.
Yeah, the one that got slashed.
What was his name again?
That was Father E. Albert Hughes.
Hughes. Okay.
A few days after this, red scratches appeared on Roland. One of the scratches formed the word Louis, which indicated to Roland's mother that the family needed to go to St. Louis. The Hunklers had relatives there, so they decided that was a way to go to save their son. But then they asked what time they should depart, and the word Saturday was written plainly on the boy's hip. And then as to the length of time the boy and his mother should stay in St. Louis, another message was printed on his chest that said 3.5 weeks. The printing always appeared without any motion from Roland's hands.
And all of those details that you just said do coincide with the book, The Exorcist Diary, which is based on the actual diaries that were kept by the priests.
Yes.
Who performed it.
Yes, absolutely. There was a cousin of the family who was attending St. Louis University during this time, and she put the Hunklers in touch with Father Walter H. Halloran and Reverend William Bowdern, who was the pastor of St. Francis Xavier Church. William Bowdern was a Jesuit who conducted more than 20 exorcism rituals on Hunkler in the span of 3 months, and he was assisted by 6 other priests.
Yep.
When they entered Roland's bedroom, the priest found him lying perfectly still on a bed that was violently shaking. They approached the boy and lifted his shirt to examine his body for the markings, and burnt into the skin on his chest was the single word, hello.
Okay. Interesting.
Writing in his diary on March 10th, 49, Bowdern noted how Hunkler entered a trance-like state as 14 witnesses watched during one of the exorcisms. His mattress shook and there was a scratching which beat out a rhythm of marching soldiers. There was also a second-class relic of St. Margaret Mary that was thrown onto the floor. The safety pin was open, but no human hand had touched the relic, and Roland started up in fright when the relic was thrown down. After consulting with the university president, the two priests agreed to perform an exorcism on Roland with the help of several assistants. Father Raymond J. Bishop was one of the priests who was called in for the exorcism, and he later wrote about his experiences. I think that's the book that you had earlier, was Father Bishop's, was it not?
Yes. It's Raymond J. Bishop, S.J. Christopher St. Booth, and that is the book.
The Exorcist Diary, the true story of the Exorcist for those of you who can't see.
Right. And the illustration on the front is of the boy, and Lewis is carved into his chest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, several of the details that you said there were in the diary. There was a few details that you gave that were not in the diary, such as the scratching and stuff. Because in the diary, they actually described that a lot more like it happened in the film, where they just heard scratches, and the family actually did think that, according to the diary, the family did actually think that they had rats, and which is exactly what happens in the film. And I found that fascinating. I'm like, well, they directly took that from the diaries. That's perfectly described according to the diaries anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, the priests all gathered at the residence on Roanoke Drive in early March of 1949. I believe you went to Roanoke Drive?
I did. I have visited the house. I actually visited all 4 sites in St. Louis. We went
you got those in that
yes.
teaser you put up. That was really cool.
Yep. So we visited the house. We drove by and got pictures of the house, I should say. We didn't go inside the house. We went by the house. We went by the cathedral, which, by the way, I've driven by that cathedral many, many times. It is a beautiful, beautiful church too. So we went by the cathedral and the Jesuit Hall, because the Jesuit Hall is actually across the street from the cathedral, which is a part of St. Louis University, by the way. And it's also just down the street from Fox Theater. And then we also visited the site where the original hospital, which was how did they describe it? A Jesuit hospital or something like that, where Catholic monks were at.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know until I read this that there was a such thing as a Catholic monk. I was telling Stephen this before we started recording.
That's the Jesuits.
Right. I was like, Catholic monks? I never heard of that. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, we went to that site. Now the hospital itself has been torn down, but there is another hospital, and it's further back on the parking lot from where the original hospital stood. And then the final site we went to was Father Boderin's grave, or Father. Well, actually, they put Reverend on the grave, but he's Catholic, so I didn't understand that. But
yeah,
either half 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, I guess. But we went to his grave, and I got to say that cemetery is the largest cemetery I've ever been to in my life. It's freaking huge. And we showed up at the last 20 minutes of the cemetery being open. The caretaker was there, and he looks at me and goes, "You got 20 minutes, and I'm locking the gates." And I'm like, "We will get out of here, because I'm not spending the night in the cemetery." And that's coming from somebody who actually lives behind a cemetery, which, by the way, are my favorite neighbors because they're very quiet.
Oh, very quiet neighbors.
But I'm
Well, and if you guys don't mind,
is it bigger than Arlington?
Well, now I don't know. I've never been to Arlington.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. That was an assumption of mine that you. No.
That's a fair assumption. I don't know. The closest I can compare it is Jefferson Barracks, which is our national cemetery, which is actually where my mother and father are buried. And Jefferson Barracks is huge, but this is bigger. This is a lot bigger than Jefferson Barracks. So.
Well, and if you guys don't mind, I would love to put on our website as well the trailer video that you did.
Oh, by far.
Outstanding.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you.
It was a really, really good trailer for this whole thing.
Thank you.
Where were we? We were on Roanoke Drive.
Sorry,
That's where we were.
That's where we were.
circling back as we do.
There, the exorcist witnessed the scratching of the boy's body and the mattress moving violently. These were the same things that happened in Maryland where the first exorcism failed. When the rites began, there were 3 dark bars that were scratched across the boy's stomach, and the priest felt like the bars were likely the symbolic of the Holy Trinity.
Ooh, interesting.
Each time the names of our Lord or his Blessed Mother were mentioned, scratches would appear on the boy's legs, thighs, stomach, back, chest, face, and throat. The most distinct markings were the words hell imprinted on Roland's chest and a picture of Satan on his right leg. And according to William Blatty, who claims to have a copy of the official report on the exorcism, quote, these brandings on the boy's skin had happened as many as 30 times a day. They were unquestionably paranormal. Some of the markings were on the back. Some were on pictures, often lasting from 3 to 4 hours. All over the official diary were accounts of these brandings.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
At one point, Bowdern attempted to protect Roland through blessings and by putting a crucifix under the young boy's pillow. And after leaving Roland to rest, the family returned to find the furniture flipped over and the crucifix had moved to the edge of the bed. At that point, Roland's mattress was again shaking uncontrollably. Amid these bizarre happenings, Bowdern and Halloran, according to the reports, noticed a pattern in Roland's behavior. He was calm and normal during the day, but at night, after settling in for bed, he would exhibit strange behavior, including screaming and wild outbursts. The priest began to see the same manifestations, the burning welts, the painful scratches on his body, the shaking bed, the trance-like coma with sudden outbursts of guttural screams and objects flying around the room. The priest also said when they saw objects mysteriously flying in the boy's presence, they noted he would react violently when he saw any sacred object presented by the attending priests. All of these details are from the true story of The Exorcist that made it into the film, but there were more that didn't. At one point during this weeks-long ordeal, Bowdern reportedly saw an X appear in scratches on Roland's chest, which the priest believed signified the number 10. In another incident, a pitchfork-shaped pattern of red lines moved from the boy's thigh and snaked down toward his ankle. And these type of things happened every single night for like a month.
Now, in the diary, they said the X, and the priest believed that it meant that it was going to last 10 days.
Right.
And then now, as far as the pitchfork, I think that was described more in the book as marking the number 3. And I think he was thinking that was supposed to signify that it would end by 3:00, which it didn't happen. It did not happen that way. It didn't end in that time period. So
Did they say why they thought it was 3:00?
No.
There is
there's a lot of details that they leave very vague in the diary.
Yeah.
You know,
there's kind of I don't know how to express this as a legend or something, but people say midnight's the witching hour, and realistically, there are those who believe that 3 a.m. is really the witching hour, and that because 3 p.m. was technically the time when Christ died on the cross was at that point, and so 3 a.m. is kind of like a direct opposite kind of a thing. And
well, so now
go ahead.
A lot of the events that happened, that occurred, okay, according to the diary, a lot of the events that happen, and they would happen each night, like Jeff said, but they would finish by roughly 2 a.m. So, and the priest had believed that the reason they finished at that time was because that's when Aunt Tilly died. She died at 2 a.m.
Interesting. Okay.
Hey, and Zig will know this better than I will, so he can correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't 3 a.m. the place where the ley lines are closer to our reality than any other time?
Yeah, that's the idea that it's 3 a.m. is the witching hour. You're exactly right. Or at least in the Wiccan and other communities, they believe that 3 a.m. is sacred.
Yeah, right. That the Fey world is closer to ours at any other time than at 3 a.m.
The veil is very close.
Yes,
the veil is thin.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah, if you ask Catholic exorcists and stuff, they'll probably tell you that time frame, around that time frame as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So the priest did perform multiple exorcisms on Roland. One was performed at Georgetown University Hospital, which was a Jesuit institution, and another took place at the Alexian Brothers Hospital in South St. Louis, Missouri. And that's the hospital you were talking about.
Yes, that's the hospital that we visited. Well, where it used to be at. Yes.
Where the friars were.
Yes.
Yeah. And weren't the Alexian brothers were chosen because they were like vows of secrecy kind of a thing, right?
That's exactly why they were chosen, because there's at one point Bowderin tries to go back to Maryland, you said, where the original event started. He tries to go back there because he wants to take the boy back, and no hospital there will take him because, for one thing, they want to try and keep it secret. Which, I mean, understandable. You don't want this kind of stuff getting out. I get it. But nobody there would keep it a secret. And he's like, okay, we got to go back to St. Louis because I know the Alexian brothers will take him. And they also have psychiatric help and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. So. When the exorcisms were performed, Roland often had violent tantrums. He vomited, urinated, spit, and spoke in Latin. And reportedly, the spit was a foul substance that went across the room with incredible accuracy.
Oh, the pea soup.
Pea soup.
Nice.
That's where that came from. Yes. It was at this point he also took on a deep adult-sounding voice that was also very unfamiliar. And then they performed the final exorcism, which was conducted with the helps of priest Walter Halloran and William Van Roo. At some point during the exorcism ritual, and we had that tapping again.
We're getting the tapping. Let me see if it's me. I'll mute.
Yep, that's where it came from.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
I'll keep my finger on the mute button.
We're being attacked for our subject.
At some point during the exorcism ritual, Halloran's nose was broken. The mattress vibrated, and Roland spoke in bursts of Latin phrases, and blood red scratches appeared on his skin. Displaying a massive strength and violent outbreak, the boy had to be restrained by 5 men, which is at that point that Roland broke Halloran's grip and rammed him in the face, which was how he broke his nose, which they said was really no small feat because Halloran was a very stout athlete who excelled in both football and track. So he was a big man. The priests never gave up, though. They continued the exorcism night after night. And on the evening of March 20th, the exorcism reached a unhealthy new level. Roland urinated all over the bed and began shouting and cursing at the priests. And now Roland's parents had had enough, so they took him to the Alexian Brothers Hospital for more serious treatment, which is where the final exorcism was conducted in the psychiatric wing of the hospital on April 18th, 1949, the day after Easter Sunday.
Yep. This all happened during Holy Week.
Yep.
Which I found fascinating.
So finally, on April 18th, a miracle occurred in Roland's room with the Alexian brothers. It was the Monday after Easter. Roland awoke with seizures. He yelled at the priest, saying Satan would always be with him. The priest laid holy relics, crucifixes, medals, and rosaries on the boy. And at 10:45 p.m. that evening, the attending priest called on St. Michael to expel Satan from Roland's body. They shouted at Satan, saying that St. Michael would battle him for Roland's soul. And 7 minutes later, Roland came out of his trance and said, he's gone.
They even brought out a St. Michael statue. They had a small St. Michael statue that they brought out too.
Yep. And Roland said that he had had a vision that St. Michael holding a flaming sword had vanquished Satan on a great battlefield.
Yep.
According to both Bowderin and Halloran, the strange occurrences of behavior ceased after that. And in the end, the priests claimed they were successful in exorcising the demons from Roland's body, and the young boy went on to live a normal life. So,
rumor has it, he actually went on to work for NASA.
Yes. So that was actually my very next point. So what?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump it.
Oh no, you're fine. It was actually my very next bullet point. He actually became a NASA engineer who helped with the 1969 moon landing.
That is amazing.
He did die of a stroke just a month shy of his 86th birthday. It was in 2020. So not last year, but the year before.
Yep. Okay.
He was living in Maryland. He had moved back. He passed away at his home. And after the series of exorcisms that Hunkler went through as a child, he actually had a very successful career with NASA. He helped patent the technology to make the space shuttle panels resistant to extreme heat for the Apollo missions of the 60s.
Wow.
Nice.
Not many people knew about his secret identity, except for very few close friends, academics, as well as the priests who knew the priests who performed the exorcism. According to his partner, Hunkler was always worried that his coworkers would find out and even leave his home on every Halloween, terrified that someone would harass him. His partner said, on Halloween, we always left the house because he figured someone would come to the residence and know where we lived and never let him have peace. He had a terrible life from worry.
Wow.
He retired from NASA in 2001 after almost 40 years and then lived a very quiet life. However, according to Hunkler's partner, the man himself never believed that he was a victim of satanic possession, and he shunned religion. Quote, he said he wasn't possessed. It was all concocted. He said, I was just a bad boy. Still, there was one thing that his partner could not explain. She said that shortly before Hunkler died, a Catholic priest appeared at his home to perform last rites, and she recalled that she did not call the priest. She said, quote, I have no idea how the Father knew to come, but he got Ron to heaven. Ron's in heaven, and he's with God now. And that, my friends, is the story of the real life exorcist.
Wow. Whoa. So it was Rolando was it Ronald?
Ronald Hunkler.
Hunkler. Ronald Hunkler.
In the diary, all they'll put is R. They wouldn't put anything else.
Yeah.
And then later, I think Ronald came out. Yeah, I mean, the name somehow came out, and people just knew him as Ronald, but no one knew the last name.
Yep.
So that's where Rolando. I'm sorry. That's where the Rolando comes from.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's where Stephen King got the name for Roland
Deschain and the gunslinger.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Interesting.
Who knows?
Maybe.
Who knows? I found the story especially as they did a really good job in the movie The Exorcist bringing about all these events. I was just, as I went through my research and I'm reading the various things, I'm like, yep, that happened in the movie, check. That happened in the movie, check. That happened in the movie, check.
Yeah,
the scratching. The scratching on her belly. That was it wasn't actually a belly. I want to say it was like cheesecloth. They were just scratching it from underneath.
Yeah.
Oh, is that how
that bed was on a platform,
mm-hmm.
so you could get up underneath it. That's how were able to get her, like halfway in and spin around and stuff because she was standing up. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Interesting.
Cool effects. Again, practical. I love it.
Now, of course, me being from St. Louis and this having ties to St. Louis, I was disappointed in the film and the fact that nope, they don't go to St. Louis at all.
Well, Blatty went to school at Georgetown. I understand why he picked it. There's some creepy places in Georgetown.
Sure.
Oh, I get that, but the story happened in St. Louis, and St. Louis has some haunting places too. So
yes, it does.
I mean, as I mentioned in part one, we also have the Lemp Mansion, which is the Lemp family, and there's all kinds of murders involved in the Lemp family. Which, by the way, Jeff, that might be a good good story for you to cover.
Yeah,
don't you guys have mounds too?
The Cahokia mounds.
We have the Cahokia mounds in Collinsville, Illinois, which is
just across the river.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not across the river for me. I'm
just.
Yeah, you live near Cahokia. Yeah. That city was huge.
Yeah.
Yep. I've written down the Lemp family.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So Zig, I have to ask you. You were a skeptic at the very beginning. How do you feel after hearing the true story?
Okay, so I am very happy that this man was able to find help. If that exorcism helped him, I think it's a great thing that they did it. And if it helps other people, I think it's great. Do I think it was demonic possessions? Absolutely not. I think the kid probably had some onset schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is also related to intestinal tract dysfunctions. Such
I'm in trouble.
Celiac, gluten sensitivity, i.e. pea soup vomit,
Gross.
and problem with gut microbes. It has to do with anti-Gladden antibodies.
So explain the different voices with Latin.
He's Catholic. Back then, everybody spoke Latin.
Actually, he wasn't Catholic.
No.
His family is Lutheran, and they actually switched to Catholicism
Because the Lutherans
event.
went, there's no such thing as exorcism.
Well, no, they didn't say that. They actually were the ones that suggested that he go to the
Jesuits.
Yep. Because they were like, look, they're more familiar with this stuff. We don't know anything. So they're the ones that suggested that he go to the Catholics.
And growing up Catholic, the only Latin I knew is what they spoke in the sermons. They did not teach us. They did not teach us Latin.
The only Latin phrase I know is "sic gorgiamos."
Oh, you know,
Damn
e pluribus unum.
Vini vidi vici. Sic gorgiamos et tu. We gladly feast upon those who would subdue us. I got to remember. Yeah. Don used to have it on the back of a jacket.
I don't know. That's all French to me.
Is it Frenchy German?
Frenchy German.
I mean, I know my Latin roots, but not enough to speak fluent in Latin. I mean,
I mean, who all heard him speaking fluent Latin? Is somebody who'd never heard Latin before? He could have just been speaking in tongues.
Well, there were at least 6 priests.
Yeah.
And
then they probably would have spoken Latin.
And they do speak Latin.
Right. See, that's the fascinating thing is the amount of people that witnessed it, and they all confirm what they saw, and that's the part of it that makes me think, yeah, this really happened. This is a truthful event.
48 total witnesses.
Right.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure something happened. But I mean, even the person it happened to said, "No, this is all bunk." He's like, "That's not what happened."
Yeah, but you're also talking about a guy that was embarrassed by it too. So it makes sense that he would tell people, "Look, it wasn't real, so leave me alone."
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
No,
and that's okay.
I for one believe it happened.
I'm with you, Jeff. I'm in that camp. I believe it happened too.
Steven, how many Captain Howdies do you give on it being true or not?
5 out of 5. and I'm going to be really limited what I discuss here, but and Mike was like, if you want to tell it, you can or something. But so some people know I'm an ex-pastor and an ex-rev. Well, I still am a rev, kind of a thing. But the
is that kind of like an alcohol?
Well, technically, so are Jeffrey and I, but
yeah, that's true. We've performed each other's weddings, so
nice.
So, Steven, is that kind of like being an alcoholic? Once one, you're always one.
Kind of, sort of. Yeah, because I still serve. I actually tomorrow I'm doing a sermon at a nice country church out here in Montana tomorrow. So, I studied under a Protestant exorcist. Because, and actually wasn't even
there was such a thing.
There's a difference between Catholic exorcism.
I'm with you, Zig. I didn't know that either.
There's a difference between Protestant and Catholic exorcisms. To put it bluntly, or try to shorten it as much as I can, is Catholics do what's called power encounters with truth encounters. And power encounters are the aspects where you're actually addressing the demon, you're speaking to the demon, that kind of situation. I know we do joke about the power of Christ compels you, kind of a thing.
Which was said multiple times in the movie.
Yes.
Multiple times.
And was not said multiple times in the book.
In
the diary.
Diary.
Yeah, it's a little different than that. So, but I also add with truth encounters, because truth encounters are really that whole part of scripture and prayer. It's the concept of the belief of the Bible, of God's word to be true. So it is truth. And so where they'll recite scriptures, that's why you'll hear like the Lord's Prayer being done. And the Lord's Prayer is really big because it begins with setting up God as, our Father who art in heaven. So hallowed or holy, set apart is your name. And so it sets up kind of the realm. And then it ends later on. It comes and deliver us from evil.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Lord thy God, ruler of the universe. Yeah.
Yes,
I'm with you. Okay.
Yep. And so that sets that up. So Protestants will stick with truth encounters. And whereas some will try to address demons or speak with demons, there are others who are from the point of view, like myself, who are just speaking with the individual who's going through whatever's going through, moving beyond dealing with the demon and speaking with the individual and where they're at. And so there so power encounters are really more Catholic, but they still do the truth encounters too. But Protestants will kind of stick with truth encounters. But again, sometimes they'll throw in power encounters too. It's just the focus of where you begin, power or truth.
Zig, you're familiar with truth encounters. You used to listen to Art Bell.
That's true.
And he had some supposed demonic possessions on his show.
Yes, he did, and they were very entertaining.
That they were.
Well, yeah. I have to question radio. We've had radio hosts in St. Louis who've done things on Halloween and stuff like that. And
is it just
with
for
that
the show?
Zig? I'm right there with you. It's entertaining, but it's
and again, just because I don't necessarily believe in the exorcism portion of it. If the exorcism helps somebody, I'm saying do it. Use all the pageantry that you need. If it fixes somebody,
there are some things within the realm of Catholicism that they'll classify as exorcisms that I would probably classify as therapy rather than an exorcism. Right. And because I had one of the different pastors are gifted in different things in different ways. And a lot of times when I was invited to assist in an exorcism, the demons would not manifest. Like they would be manifest, but when I walk in the room, they wouldn't. And that's not saying I'm some great thing. And if anything, it's probably God protected me, because I'd probably freak out beyond recognition kind of a thing. Now I have had instances, but point being is that, there is an opportunity to really work with someone beyond having to deal with any of that. I had one individual that I was working with who could not even read scripture, could not read the Bible at all. I mean, would freak out starting to read and couldn't do it. Wow. And that individual was seeing manifestations at the end of her bed of a dead relative that was haunting her, kind of a situation. But she was acting out. And, but by the time working with that individual was then able to read scripture, was able to pray out loud, was able to, to do those things. But in the beginning, there was no possible way. And there was an instance where with that individual, I had someone in the room, another female in the room with this, it was a female. And, you do those things to protect yourself. Kind of
yeah.
And she,
because you've seen The Exorcist.
I'd seen The Exorcist, by God.
With the crucifix scene. I need another woman in the room. Yeah. Right. Like that goes down.
Right. And so she was praying, and then we were praying with with this individual, and she looked up, and then all of a sudden her glasses reflected. My office had a big window that led outside. It was kind of a nice, peaceful scene and stuff. And when she looked up, both myself and the other, and the person helping me saw a huge dark figure in the reflection of what was in the window. Now I was on the second floor. And so we both looked at the window, but there was nothing there. It was only in the reflection of her glasses. It was really interesting. Wow. That's the most that I've experienced something as far as manifestation of things that I've done.
Jeffrey, help me with this. The Wiccans, they always talk about the mirror because it's a triple reflection. It's not the first reflection. It's not the actual image. It's the second reflection. Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, you're going beyond me.
Oh God, you know what? I need to ask it. I need to ask an actual Wiccan.
Yeah, it's a window thing. Or when I say window,
but it's not the first reflection. It's the second reflection. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, and there's those that they talk about if you try one of those things where you chant something into a mirror, trying to make something appear.
Bloody Mary.
Yeah, like that.
Candyman.
That's psychological. That psychologically you're going to see something because you're trying to convince yourself something's there.
That does happen too as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Zig, nobody says the B word.
Oh, sorry. I only said it once. What if I'm talking about the star?
Yeah. So the person I studied under had some interesting stories to tell, and I interviewed him because he wrote a book last year just about his framework of what he teaches and he helps people with, and there are instances where that's something's going on. I'm not going to say if it is or isn't, but I know something's happening, but there are some instances it is someone who's dealing with like you said, schizophrenia or dissociative identity disorder. I had someone that I was working with that had dissociative identity disorder and was switching right in front of me. And it was
that's got to be weird.
It is. It is. But when you've seen some weird things, some other things don't bother you, kind of a thing. So, but there is a balance. You have to be really careful. And that's one of the things I really appreciated really about this story and the rules that you have to follow in Catholicism is exorcism is kind of a last resort.
Oh yeah. Well, and the Catholic Church will also tell you exorcisms are not authorized.
Right. Which, they portrayed that in the movie very well, actually.
Yeah.
Because
they've got an office that does it, but they're not authorized.
Correct.
That's right.
They have rules and guidelines around it, but they don't authorize it.
So here I'm holding up my 1970. This book is 50 years old.
Oh wow!
It's on the Catholic rites. I have my actual rite. This is over 20 years old.
Wow.
This one here. I've got an interview with Father Jose Antonio Fortea.
Oh, nice.
Who is a Spanish exorcist who tells his story and learning. And I'm also aware that about 15 years ago, the Catholic Church updated their exorcism rites. And the only way to get those rites is you have to go through their approval system.
Right.
And that's how you get them. It's really interesting.
Their approval system for the ritual that they don't allow.
That's correct.
Yes. They don't perform anymore.
They don't do it anymore. Right.
But we updated it just in case. Hey, don't keep your eggs all in one basket.
But see, I respect the fact that they do take it very seriously. And
sure.
And they want to make sure that, this is not a psychological, thing. They want to rule everything out. Mm-hmm. And that is a complete last resort. I think you have to respect that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I do very much.
And again, whether you believe it or not, if it helps somebody, hey, because apparently it helped this guy.
Well, I think it goes back to what Jeff said. It's, the whole Bloody Mary thing, or, the marriage. Sometimes there's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Is that the best way to say that?
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. And then going through something like that helps break that self-fulfilling prophecy. There are those. There's been times where I've told people, I know my limitations, but what you're going through is you need to go see so-and-so. And I had a whole referral system based upon what, different needs were and things like that. But if it was spiritual in nature, that was something I would really try to work with the individual on. I would never address anything that some people would consider demonic or a name like that.
Sure.
Or the way they were trying to get a name.
Well, guys,
all I'm saying, Zig, is I believe it because I've experienced it, but I am totally okay with you not, and that's totally okay too.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, man, tikkun olam. As long as it makes the world a better place, I'm all for it.
I love it.
Well, guys, this has been great for our second crossover. Really, really super enjoyed hanging out with y'all again. Listen to me hanging out with y'all.
You? With you.
Oh, as I talked about at the very beginning, if you're not already listening, please go over and listen to Two Geeks and a Microphone, especially for this episode, so you can get part one with the movie. But I highly recommend listening to them. They are a great show. I love listening to them. I love when I have the opportunity for my Saturday mornings to sit down with their live show, and they're so much more ambitious than we are.
Oh my God, yes.
Well, you guys are always welcome on our show, and if you want to come on the live show, you're more than welcome for that.
That's right.
We might have to do that at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so go listen to them. Y'all want to give the information for your website?
Go ahead, Stephen.
Oh, yeah, sure. So if you want to check us out, our main hub is our website, 2geeksmic.com. So that's the number 2, GEEKSMIC.com. And from there, you can get to our Facebook page where we've got a whole bunch of posting, and Mike does a whole bunch of memes that are pretty funny. And then also you can go to our Podbean page or where if you want to go and check out our podcast and click the link to your favorite podcast catcher. And then also our merch page. We've got some fun shirts and stuff. Mike just put up a new one that says "Save it for the podcast." He tells me that all the time. And then also our Ko-fi page. It's like Patreon, but it's just a different vendor that we really enjoy. And we got stuff so that you can support us there. We do special stuff for those who are our patrons, our Ko-fi supporters.
Yeah, we're doing our classic sci-fi series on Ko-fi, and our first 2 episodes have been Logan's Run and Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan.
Outstanding.
God! Right.
We do that several times, by the way. I mean, you got to do that when you talk about that film,
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Jeff and Zig, thanks for having us too, because we really love you guys. Love what you guys are doing.
Absolutely.
And it's always a blast to hang out with you guys.
Love hanging out with you guys too. Yeah. So, shameless plugs for our show. You can find us at nerderymurdery.com. You can find the links to everything we talked about. Plus you can find pictures, sometimes videos on there as well. Especially when Zig does his indie list, you can find links to the YouTube to actually listen to the music yourselves, since we can't put it on the show due to copyrights.
That's right.
So,
I'm always yelling at Steven, stop humming the
song. You can find our merchandise as well. We've got several things on there, including we have some catchphrase of ours. We do have a "You're an Idiot" shirt and "Cue the Music" shirt. So go out and find your Nerdery and Murdery merchandise. And you can also find the link to our Patreon if you wish to our Patreon. If you wish to become a patron to our show, you do get episodes 2 weeks early, as well as exclusive episodes. So there's some nice little spiffs for being a patron. And you can also find the link to all of our social media and emails. You can tell us things you like, tell us things you don't like. If you want to tell us you like Two Geeks and a Microphone better than us, go for it.
Yes, right on.
So with that, guys, if you'll say yourselves one more time.
I am Mike with Two Geeks and a Microphone.
And I'm Steven with Two Geeks and a Microphone.
I have been Zig with your nerdery.
And I've been Jeffrey with your murdery.
Cue the music.